The Law of One, Book 2, Session 40. March 18, 1981. R.A., I am R.A. I greet you in the love and in the light of the infinite Creator. We communicate now. Questioner, I thought that I would make a statement and let you correct it. I'm trying to make a simple model of the portion of the universe that we find ourselves in. Starting with the sublogos, our sun, we have white light emanating from this, which is made up of the frequencies ranging from the red to the violet. I am assuming that this white light then contains the experiences through all of the densities, and as we go into the 8th density we go into a black hole which becomes, on the other side, another logos or sun and starts another octave of experience. Can you comment on this part of my statement? R.A., I am R.A. We can comment upon this statement to an extent. The concept of the white light of the sublogos being prismatically separated and later, at the final chapter, being absorbed again is basically correct. However, there are subtleties involved which are more than semantic. The white light which emanates and forms the articulated sublogos has its beginning in what may be metaphysically seen as darkness. The light comes into that darkness and transfigures it, causing the chaos to organize and become reflective or radiant. Thus the dimensions come into being. Conversely, the blackness of the black hole, metaphysically speaking, is a concentration of white light being systematically absorbed once again into the one Creator. Finally, this absorption into the one Creator continues until all the infinity of creations have attained sufficient spiritual mass in order that all form once again the great central sun, if you would so imagine it, of the intelligent infinity awaiting potentiation by free will. Thus the transition of the octave is a process which may be seen to enter into timelessness of unimaginable nature. To attempt to measure it by your time measures would be useless. Therefore, the concept of moving through the black hole of the ultimate spiritual gravity well and coming immediately into the next octave misses the subconcept or corollary of the portion of this process which is timeless. Questioner, our astronomers have noticed that light from spiral galaxies is approximately 70 times less than it should be, considering the calculated mass of the galaxy. I was wondering if that was due to the increase of spiritual mass in the galaxy in what we call white dwarf stars? R.A., I am R.A. This is basically correct and is a portion of the way or process of creation cycle. Questioner, thank you. I was also wondering if the first density corresponded somehow to the color red, the second to the color orange, the third to the color yellow, and so on through the densities corresponding to the colors in perhaps a way so that the basic vibration which forms the photon that forms the core of all atomic particles would have a relationship to the color in the density, and that vibration would step up for second, third, and fourth density corresponding to the increase in the vibration of the colors. Is any of this correct? R.A., I am R.A. This is more correct than you have stated. Firstly, you are correct in positing a quantum, if you will, as the nature of each density, and further correct in assuming that these quanta may be seen to be of vibratory natures corresponding to color as you grasp this word. However, it is also true, as you have suspected but not asked, that each density is of the metaphysical characteristic complex of its ray. Thus in first density the red ray is the foundation for all that is to come. In second density the orange ray is that of movement and growth of the individual, this ray striding towards the yellow ray of self-conscious manifestations of a social nature as well as individual, third density being the equivalent, and so forth, each density being primarily its ray plus the attractions of the following ray pulling it forward in evolution and to some extent coloring or shading the chief color of that density. Questioner, then bodily energy centers for an individual, assuming that the individual evolves in a straight line from first through to 8th density, would then be activated to completion if everything worked as it should? Would each chakra be activated to completion in greatest intensity by the end of the experience in each density? R.A., I am R.A. Hypothetically speaking, this is correct. However, the fully activated being is rare. Much emphasis is laid upon the harmonies and balances of individuals. It is necessary for graduation across densities for the primary energy centers to be functioning in such a way as to communicate with intelligent infinity and to appreciate and bask in this light in all of its purity. However, to fully activate each energy center is the mastery of few, for each center has a variable speed of rotation or activity. The important observation to be made once all necessary centers are activated to the minimal necessary degree is the harmony and balance between these energy centers. Questioner, thank you. Taking as an example the transition between second and third density, when this transition takes place, does the frequency of vibration which forms the photon, the core of all the particles of the density, increase from a frequency corresponding to second density or the color orange to the frequency that we measure as the color yellow? What I am getting at is, do all the vibrations that form the density, the basic vibrations of the photon, increase in a quantum fashion over a relatively short period of time? RA. This is correct. Then you see within each density the gradual upgrading of vibratory levels. Questioner, this is a guess. Would the frequency going from second to third increase from the middle orange or average orange frequency to the middle or average yellow frequency? RA. This query is indeterminate. We shall attempt to be of aid. However, the frequency that is the basis of each density is what may be called a true color. This term is impossible to define given your system of sensibilities and scientific measurements, for color has vibratory characteristics both in space/time and in time/space. The true color is then overlaid and tinged by the rainbow of the various vibratory levels within that density and the attraction vibrations of the next true color density. Questioner, how long was the time of transition from second to third density? A generation and a half, I believe you said. Is that correct? RA. This is correct, the time measured in your years being approximately 1,350. Questioner, then what will be the time of transition on this planet from third to fourth density? RA. This is difficult to estimate due to the uncharacteristic anomalies of this transition. There are at this space/time nexus beings incarnate which have begun fourth density work. However, the third density climate of planetary consciousness is retarding the process. At this particular nexus, the possibility/probability vortices indicate somewhere between 100 and 700 of your years as transition period. This cannot be accurate due to the volatility of your peoples at this space/time. Questioner, has the vibration of the photon increased in frequency already? RA. This is correct. It is this influence which has begun to cause thoughts to become things. As an example, you may observe the thoughts of anger becoming those cells of the physical bodily complex going out of control to become what you call the cancer. Questioner, I am assuming that this vibratory increase began about 20 to 30 years ago. Is this correct? RA. The first harbingers of this were approximately 45 of your years ago, the energies vibrating more intensely through the 40-year period preceding the final movement of vibratory matter, shall we say, through the quantum leap, as you would call it. Questioner, starting then, 45 years ago, and taking the entire increase of vibration that we will experience in this density change, approximately what percentage through this increase in vibrational change are we right now? RA. The vibratory nature of your environment is true color, green. This is at this time heavily overwoven with the orange ray of planetary consciousness. However, the nature of quanta is such that the movement over the boundary is that of discrete placement of vibratory level. Questioner, you mentioned that the thoughts of anger now are causing cancer. Can you expand on this mechanism as it acts as a catalyst or its complete purpose? RA. The fourth density is one of revealed information. Selves are not hidden to self or other selves. The imbalances or distortions which are of a destructive nature show, therefore, in more obvious ways, the vehicle of the mind/body/spirit complex, thus acting as a teaching resource for self-revelation. These illnesses such as cancer are correspondingly very amenable to self-healing once the mechanism of the destructive influence has been grasped by the individual. Questioner, then you are saying that cancer is quite easily healed mentally and is a good teaching tool because it is easily healed mentally, and once the entity forgives the other self at whom he is angry, the cancer will disappear. Is this correct? RA. This is partially correct. The other portion of healing has to do with forgiveness of self and a greatly heightened respect for the self. This may conveniently be expressed by taking care in dietary matters. This is quite frequently a part of the healing and forgiving process. Your basic premise is correct. Questioner, in dietary matters, what would be the foods that one would include and what would be the foods that one would exclude in a general way for the greatest care of one's bodily complex? RA. Firstly, we underline and emphasize that this information is not to be understood literally but as a link or psychological nudge for the body and the mind and spirit. Thus it is the care and respect for the self that is the true thing of importance. In this light we may iterate the basic information given for this instrument's diet. The vegetables, the fruits, the grains, and to the extent necessary for the individual metabolism, the animal products. These are those substances showing respect for the self. In addition, though this has not been mentioned, for this instrument is not in need of purification, those entities in need of purging the self of a poison thought form or emotion complex do well to take care in following a program of careful fasting until the destructive thought form has been purged analogously with the byproducts of ridding the physical vehicle of excess material. Again, you see the value not to the body complex, but used as a link for the mind and spirit. Thus self reveals self to self. Questioner, thank you. A very important concept. Does the fact that the basic vibration that we experience now is green true color or fourth density account for the fact that there are many mental effects upon material objects that are now observable for the first time in a mass way, such as the bending of metal by mind? I am RA. This shall be the final query in total of this working. This is not only correct, but we suggest you take this concept further and understand the great number of entities with the so-called mental diseases being due to the effect of this green ray true color upon the mental configurations of those unready mentally to face the self for the first time. Are there any brief queries before we close? Questioner, just two. With respect to what you just said, would then people incarnating here by seniority of vibration who incarnate in the service to self path be ones who would have extreme difficulty mentally with this green ray vibration? I am RA. This is incorrect. It is rather the numbers who have distracted themselves and failed to prepare for this transition yet who are somewhat susceptible to its influence who may be affected. Questioner, thank you. Is there anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or to improve the contact? RA, this instrument is well. You are conscientious. The appurtenances cause this instrument greater comfort in the distortion of the warmth of the body complex. I am RA. I leave you, my friends, in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth then rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the one infinite Creator. Adonai. A.T. The Law of One, Book 2, Session 41. March 20th, 1981. RA, I am RA. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. We communicate now. Questioner, I have one question of logistics to start with. I know that it is a dumb question, but I have to ask it to be sure. There is a possibility that we may have to move from this location. Will this have any effect at all on our contact with RA? RA, I am RA. This is not a foolish question. The location is meaningless, for are we not in the creation? However, the place of the working shall be either carefully adjudged by yourselves to be of the appropriate vibratory levels, or it shall be suggested that the purification of the place be enacted and dedication made through meditation before initial working. This might entail such seemingly mundane chores as the cleansing or painting of surfaces which you may deem to be inappropriately marred. Questioner, I am familiar with the banishing ritual of the lesser pentagram. I was wondering if this ritual was of use in preparing a place for this type of working? RA, I am RA. This is correct. Questioner, in trying to build an understanding from the start, you might say, starting with intelligent infinity and getting to our present condition of being, I think that I should go back and investigate our sun, since it is the sublogos that creates all that we experience in this particular planetary system. Will you give me a description of our sun? RA, I am RA. This is a query which is not easily answered in your language, for the sun has various aspects in relation to intelligent infinity, to intelligent energy, and to each density of each planet, as you call these spheres. Moreover, these differences extend into the metaphysical or time/space part of your creation. In relationship to intelligent infinity, the sun body is, equally with all parts of the infinite creation, part of that infinity. In relation to the potentiated intelligent infinity which makes use of intelligent energy, it is the offspring, shall we say, of the logos for a much larger number of sublogoi. The relationship is hierarchical in that the sublogos uses the intelligent energy in ways set forth by the logos and uses its free will to co-create the, shall we say, full nuances of your densities as you experience them. In relationship to the densities, the sun body may physically, as you would say, be seen to be a large body of gaseous elements undergoing the processes of fusion and radiating heat and light. Metaphysically, the sun achieves a meaning to fourth through seventh density according to the growing abilities of entities in these densities to grasp the living creation and co-entity, or other self, nature of this sun body. Thus by the sixth density the sun may be visited and inhabited by those dwelling in time/space and may even be partially created from moment to moment by the processes of sixth density entities in their evolution. Questioner, in your last statement did you mean that the sixth density entities are actually creating manifestations of the sun in their density? Could you explain what you meant by that? IMRA. In this density some entities whose means of reproduction is fusion may choose to perform this portion of experience as part of the beingness of the sun body. Thus you may think of portions of the light that you receive as offspring of the generative expression of sixth density love. Questioner, then could you say that sixth density entities are using that mechanism to be more closely co-creators with the infinite creator? IMRA. This is precisely correct as seen in the latter portions of sixth density seeking the experiences of the gateway density. Questioner, thank you. What I want to do now is investigate, as the first density is formed, what happens and how energy centers are first formed in beings. Does it make any sense to ask you if the sun itself has a density, or is it all densities? IMRA. The sublogos is of the entire octave and is not that entity which experiences the learning/teachings of entities such as yourselves. Questioner, I am going to make a statement of my understanding and ask you to correct me. I intuitively see the first density being formed by an energy center which is a vortex. This vortex then causes these spinning motions that I have mentioned before of vibration which is light which then starts to condense into materials of the first density. Is this correct? IMRA. This is correct as far as your reasoning has taken you. However, it is well to point out that the logos has the plan of all the densities of the octave in potential completion before entering the space/time continuum in first density. Thus the energy centers exist before they are manifest. Questioner, then what is the simplest being that is manifested? I am supposing that it might be a single cell or something like that. How does it function with respect to energy centers? IMRA. The simplest manifest being is light or what you have called the photon. In relationship to energy centers, it may be seen to be the center or foundation of all articulated energy fields. Questioner, when first density is formed we have fire, air, earth, and water. There is at some time the first movement or individuation of life into a portion of consciousness that is self-mobile. Could you describe the process of the creation of this and what type of energy center it has? IMRA. The first or red ray density, though attracted towards growth, is not in the proper vibration for those conditions conducive to what you may call the spark of awareness. As the vibratory energies move from red to orange, the vibratory environment is such as to stimulate those chemical substances which lately had been inert to combine in such a fashion that love and light begin the function of growth. The supposition which you had earlier made concerning single-celled entities such as the polymorphous dinoflagellate is correct. The mechanism is one of the attraction of upward spiraling light. There is nothing random about this or any portion of evolution. Questioner, as I remember, the polymorphous dinoflagellate has an iron rather than a copper-based cell. Could you comment on that? IMRA. This information is not central. The base of any metabolism, shall we say, is that which may be found in the chemical substances of the neighborhood of origin. Questioner, I was just commenting on this because it has the motion of our animal life with copper-based cells, yet it has the iron-based cell of plant life, indicating a transition from possibly plant to animal life. Am I wrong? My memory is a little fuzzy on this. IMRA. It is not that you are incorrect, but that no conclusion should be drawn from such information. There are several different types of bases for conscious entities not only upon this planetary sphere, but to a much greater extent in the forms found on planetary spheres of other sublogoi. The chemical vehicle is that which most conveniently houses the consciousness. The functioning of consciousness is the item of interest rather than the chemical makeup of a physical vehicle. We have observed that those whom you call scientists have puzzled over the various differences and possible interrelationships of various stages, types, and conditions of life forms. This is not fruitful material as it is that which is of a moment's choice by your sublogos. Questioner, I didn't mean to waste time with that question, but you just happened to mention that particular single cell. Does this polymorphous dinoflagellate have an orange energy center? IMRA. This is correct. Questioner, is this energy center, then, on a very small scale related to the orange energy center in man? RA. The true color is precisely the same. However, the consciousness of the second density beginning is primitive and the use of orange ray limited to the expression of self, which may be seen to be movement and survival. In third density, at this time, those clinging to orange ray have a much more complex system of distortions through which orange ray is manifested. This is somewhat complicated. We shall endeavor to simplify. The appropriate true color for third density is, as you have ascertained, yellow. However, the influences of the true color, green, acting upon yellow ray entities have caused many entities to revert to the consideration of self rather than the stepping forward into consideration of other self or green ray. This may not be seen to be of a negatively polarized nature, as the negatively polarized entity is working very intensively with the deepest manifestations of yellow ray group energies, especially the manipulations of other self for service to self. Those reverting to orange ray, and we may add these are many upon your plane at this time, are those who feel the vibrations of true color green and, therefore, respond by rejecting governmental and societal activities as such and seek once more the self. However, not having developed the yellow ray properly so that it balances the personal vibratory rates of the entity then is faced with the task of further activation and balancing of the self in relation to the self, thus the orange ray manifestations at this space/time nexus. Thus true color orange is that which it is without difference. However, the manifestations of this or any ray may be seen to be most various depending upon the vibratory levels and balances of the mind/body or mind/body/spirit complexes which are expressing these energies. Questioner, could you tell me the simplest and first entity to have both orange and yellow ray energy centers? RA. Upon your planetary sphere, those having the first yellow ray experiences are those of animal and vegetable natures which find the necessity for reproduction by bisexual techniques or who find it necessary to depend in some way upon other selves for survival and growth. Questioner, and then what entity would be the simplest that would have red, orange, yellow, and green rays activated? RA. This information has been covered in a previous session. To perhaps simplify your asking, each center may be seen to be activated potentially in third density, the late second density entities having the capability, if efficient use is made of experience, of vibrating and activating the green ray energy center. The third density being, having the potential for complete self-awareness, thus has the potential for the minimal activation of all energy centers. The fourth, fifth, and sixth densities are those refining the higher energy centers. The seventh density is a density of completion and the turning towards timelessness or foreverness. Questioner, then would an animal in second density have all of the energy centers in some way in its being but just not activated? RA. This is precisely correct. Questioner, then the animal in second density is composed of light as are all things. What I am trying to get at is the relationship between the light that the various bodies of the animal are created of and the relationship of this to the energy centers which are active and the ones which are not active and how this is linked with the logos. It is a difficult question to ask. Can you give me some kind of answer? RA. The answer is to redirect your thought processes from any mechanical view of evolution. The will of the logos posits the potentials available to the evolving entity. The will of the entity as it evolves is the single measure of the rate and fastidiousness of the activation and balancing of the various energy centers. Questioner, thank you. In the session from the day before yesterday you mentioned variable speed of rotation or activity of energy centers. What did you mean by that? RA. Each energy center has a wide range of rotational speed, or as you may see it more clearly in relation to color, brilliance. The more strongly the will of the entity concentrates upon and refines or purifies each energy center, the more brilliant or rotationally active each energy center will be. It is not necessary for the energy centers to be activated in order in the case of the self-aware entity. Thusly entities may have extremely brilliant energy centers while being quite unbalanced in their violet ray aspect due to lack of attention paid to the totality of experience of the entity. The key to balance may then be seen in the unstudied, spontaneous, and honest response of entities toward experiences, thus using experience to the utmost, then applying the balancing exercises and achieving the proper attitude for the most purified spectrum of energy center manifestation in violet ray. This is why the brilliance or rotational speed of the energy centers is not considered above the balanced aspect or violet ray manifestation of an entity in regarding harvestability, for those entities which are unbalanced, especially as to the primary rays, will not be capable of sustaining the impact of the love and light of intelligent infinity to the extent necessary for harvest. Questioner, could you tell me the difference between space/time and time/space? RA, IMRA. Using your words, the difference is that between the visible and invisible or the physical and metaphysical. Using mathematical terms, as does the one you call Larson, the difference is that between S/T and T/S. Questioner, you mentioned in the last session the concept of fasting for removing unwanted thought forms. Can you expand on this process and explain a little bit more about how this works? RA, IMRA. This, as all healing techniques, must be used by a conscious being, that is, a being conscious that the ridding of excess and unwanted material from the body complex is the analogy to the ridding of mind or spirit of excess or unwanted material. Thus the one discipline or denial of the unwanted portion as an appropriate part of the self is taken through the tree of mind down through the trunk to subconscious levels where the connection is made, and thus the body, mind, and spirit, then in unison, express denial of the excess or unwanted spiritual or mental material as part of the entity. All then falls away, and the entity, while understanding, if you will, and appreciating the nature of the rejected material as part of the greater self, nevertheless, through the action of the will purifies and refines the mind/body/spirit complex, bringing into manifestation the desired mind complex or spirit complex attitude. Questioner, then would this be like a conscious reprogramming of catalyst? For instance, for some entities catalyst is programmed by the higher self to create experiences so that the entity can release itself from unwanted biases. Would this be analogous then to the entity consciously programming this release and using fasting as the method of communication to itself? RA, IMRA. This is not only correct, but may be taken further. The self, if conscious to a great enough extent of the workings of this catalyst and the techniques of programming, may through concentration of the will and the faculty of faith alone cause reprogramming without the analogy of the fasting, the diet, or other analogous body complex disciplines. Questioner, I have a book, Initiation, in which the woman describes initiation. Are you familiar with the contents of this book? RA, IMRA. This is correct. We scan your mind. Questioner, I have only read part of it, but I was wondering if the teachings in the book with respect to balancing were Ra's teachings? RA, IMRA. This is basically correct with distortions that may be seen when this material is collated with the material we have offered. Questioner, why are the red, yellow, and blue energy centers called primary centers? I think from previous material I understand this, but is there some tracing of these primary colors back to intelligent infinity more profound than what you have given us? RA, IMRA. We cannot say what may seem profound to an entity. The red, yellow, and blue rays are primary because they signify activity of a primary nature. Red ray is the foundation, orange ray the movement towards yellow ray, which is the ray of self-awareness and interaction. Green ray is the movement through various experiences of energy exchanges having to do with compassion and all-forgiving love to the primary blue ray, which is the first ray of radiation of self regardless of any actions from another. The green ray entity is ineffectual in the face of blockage from other selves. The blue ray entity is a co-creator. This may perhaps simply be a restatement of previous activity, but if you consider the function of the logos as representative of the infinite creator in effectuating the knowing of the creator by the creator, you may perhaps see the steps by which this may be accomplished. May we ask for one final full question before we leave this working? Questioner, this may be too long a question for this working, but I will ask it, and if it is too long we can continue it at a later time. Could you tell me of the development of the social memory complex RA, from its first beginnings and what catalysts it used to get to where it is now an activation of rays? RA, IMRA. The question does not demand a long answer, for we who experienced the vibratory densities upon that planetary sphere which you call Venus were fortunate in being able to move in harmony with the planetary vibrations with an harmonious graduation to second, to third, and to fourth, and a greatly accelerated fourth density experience. We spent much time/space, if you will, in fifth density balancing the intense compassion we had gained in fourth density. The graduation again was harmonious, and our social memory complex, which had become most firmly cemented in fourth density, remained of a very strong and helpful nature. Our sixth density work was also accelerated because of the harmony of our social memory complex, so that we were able to set out as members of the Confederation to even more swiftly approach graduation to seventh density. Our harmony, however, has been a grievous source of naivete as regards working with your planet. Is there a brief query before we leave this instrument? Questioner, is there anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or to improve the contact? R.A., I am R.A. All is well. I leave you, my friends, in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one infinite Creator. Adonai.